If you enjoy the content on this channel, please like and subscribe. Under the Bridge is an American true crime drama television miniseries developed by Quinn Shephard that is based upon the book of the same name by Rebecca Godfrey. The series premiered on Hulu on April 17th, 2024. The story follows the murder of Reena Virk as a writer enters the hidden world of the accused killers. Just a little bit about the real murder of Reena Virk. Reena Virk was born in 1983 and unfortunately died on November 14th, 1997. She is a 14-year-old Canadian girl who was beaten and killed by a group of teenagers in Saanich, British Columbia, Canada. Her status as a victim of bullying prior to her murder attracted substantial media scrutiny in Canada. 6 teenagers were tried and convicted for their participation in her death. The Globe and Mail commented at the time that her case was elevated into a national tragedy. A pair of Canadian socialists have described the case as a watershed moment for the moral panic over girl violence by the Canadian public in the late 1990s. Virk's father was an immigrant from India, while her mother was from an Indo-Canadian family who had converted from Hinduism to Jehovah's Witnesses religion after arriving in Canada. Her immediate family was a minority within a minority, as they were Jehovah's Witnesses in a local Southern Asian community of 3,000, which was predominantly Sikh. Virk was described as desperate for acceptance amongst her peers, but was taunted and ostracized by girls whose subculture was influenced by Los Angeles street gangs. She began to rebel due to such peer influence, smoking marijuana and cigarettes. Bullied for her weight and insecurity, she was also said to feel restricted by the rules of her family's faith. In 1996, she falsely reported her father for sexual molestation in the hopes of being moved to a foster home and having more freedom. As a result, she was moved from her family's home into the province's care for several months in 1996. She later dropped the charges and returned home. Reena would then be beaten and killed by a group of teenagers in British Columbia, Canada. The perpetrators were Warren Golowatsky and 6 female perpetrators who were charged for various crimes pertaining to Virk's death. The underage female perpetrators were referred to in court documents as Nicole Cook, Nicole Patterson, Missy Grace Pletch, Courtney Keith, Gail Ooms, and Kelly Ellard, all admitted involvement. Warren Golowatsky was born on April 26, 1981, in Medicine Hat, Alberta. He was 16 years old when Virk was murdered. Golowatsky and his parents moved around frequently. In June of 1999, Golowatsky was convicted of second-degree murder and given a life sentence. Because he was 16 at the time of the murder, he was eligible for parole after serving 7 years. In November 2004, he was denied his first chance of day parole. The Virks did not contest the parole because Golowatsky expressed remorse and responsibility for his part in the murder. In July 2006, he was granted unescorted temporary absences from jail. By December 2006, Golowatsky was eligible to apply for day parole again, which he was granted in June 2007. During his incarceration, Golowatsky discovered that he was Métis, an indigenous people who originally came from Canada. This played a large role in his parole hearings as he asked the parole board to incorporate his elders into the process, and various healing circles and other forms of restorative justice were used, which in turn brought Golowatsky and Virk's parents together. In receiving day parole, he proceeded to hug every member of the parole board and those present, including the Virks. Warren Golowatsky was released on full parole in June 2010. Kelly Ellard, who was born on August 9, 1982, was 15 years old when she drowned Virk. Ellard stood trial 3 times for the murder and was convicted twice, initially in March 2000 for second-degree murder in Virk's death, a conviction that was overturned with a new trial ordered in February of 2003, followed by a second trial that ended in mistrial with a hung jury in July of 2004. The third trial was ordered and Ellard was convicted again of second-degree murder in April 2005 and given an automatic life sentence with no parole eligibility for 7 years. However, the BC Courts of Appeals overturned the conviction based on an error by the original trial judge. On June 12, 2009, the Supreme Court of Canada overturned the BC Court of Appeals in an 8-1 decision ruling that Ellard's third trial had been fairly executed, that the error by the original trial judge was harmless and a conviction would stand. Ellard was granted conditional day parole in November 2017. In October 2018, when her day parole was extended, the documents from the Parole Board of Canada revealed that Ellard had changed her name to Kerry Marie Sim. Her day parole was suspended in August 2021 for failing to report domestic violence, with the suspicion cancelled in late October 2001. In May of 2022, the then 39-year-old Kerry waived her right to a parole hearing as she did not yet feel ready to return to society on a full-time basis. By law, the Parole Board of Canada was still required to review her feasibility for full parole and also deemed her unworthy of moving beyond day parole. Nicole Cook was born in 1983 and lived in a group home at the time. In the show, she's renamed Josephine Bell. In the documentary Bloodlust Under the Bridge, Cook spoke about how she took a lit cigarette and put it out on Reena Virk's face, initiating the mayhem that followed. Cook further explained how she repeatedly punched and kicked Virk, and she was being pommeled by the other assailants. At the end of the interview, Cook then lambasted the accusation that she had anything to do with Virk's actual murder because Ellard was the actual participant charged for the murder. Cook also returned to the crime scene a day after the killing, accompanied by Pesh, and retrieved Reena's shoes and sweater. They took these items back to their group home and forced other residents of the group home to hide Reena's clothing. One resident proceeded to inform the staff at the group home, who then notified the police. In the book Under the Bridge by Rebecca Godfrey details some of the motives that may have led to Virk's death. The book also reveals that Virk was initially considered a runaway when her mother first reported her missing to the Saanich Police Department. The book Under the Bridge incorrectly documented the missing persons report as being made by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Two Russian sisters who lived in a youth group home were prompted to contact the police upon hearing that Virk was most likely dead. Just a little bit about Rebecca Godfrey, the writer of the book on which the show is based on. Godfrey was born in 1967 and lost her life on October 3, 2022. She died from complications due to lung cancer. Some interesting trivia notes. The showrunners worked directly with the victim's Reena Virk's father, Manjit Virk, to tell his stories in the miniseries. Riley Kenaugh and Lily Gladstone were handpicked by the book author and series producer Rebecca Godfrey for their roles before her death from cancer in 2022. Though she died before filming began, Godfrey worked for 3 years with the showrunner Quinn Shephard on the show, and depiction of her played by Riley Kenaugh. She also gave Shephard her investigative journals on the case and her personal diaries during the period of her life to help round out Kenaugh's Rebecca. Production was halted for 4 months due to the sudden death of star Riley Kenaugh's mother, Lisa Marie Presley. The court testimonies from the teens were taken from the real-life testimonies and interrogations of the killers and attackers. Actress Riley Kenaugh, who plays Rebecca, based her performances on the videos of real-life Rebecca Godfrey that she'd studied and read Godfrey's writings. Unfortunately, Godfrey passed away before the two could actually meet. Casting auditioned over 700 girls across America before deciding on Vertika Gupta for the role of Reena Virk. Despite dying from lung cancer, book author and producer Rebecca Godfrey weighed in on scripts and casting from a hospital bed. When shown the casting tape of Javon Warner Walton, Godfrey said, "This is for sure Warren." Rebecca's brother Gabe is based on her real-life brother Jonathan, who died at the age of 16. Now, I found this to be a completely harrowing, disturbing, and frankly downright shocking true-life miniseries. The show focuses on the unraveling of a brutal and heinous murder by a group of teenagers who basically bullied and picked on one of their own, savagely beating her, even extinguishing a cigarette on her forehead, and whilst two of them then followed her across the bridge and would drown her, taking her clothes and leaving her body to wash up upon the shores. It's a truly shocking and horrifying story that mere children could be so violent, so cruel, so mean, so vindictive. The cast in the show are absolutely stunning, but I really have to give out a special shout out to Lily Gladstone, who turns out an excellent performance here, as Cam Bentland, the lead police officer on the case. As does Riley Kenaugh here, playing Rebecca Godfrey, the conflicted and complicated author of the book on which the show is based upon. Javon Warner Walton here turns out a fantastic performance here as Warren Golowatsky. Yes, he played a role in Reena Virk's murder, but in the same breath though, the show portrays him as sympathetic. You understand that this is a child coming from an abusive and neglected background. Of course, he made some horrible decisions and deserved his punishment, but the show allows you to invoke sympathy upon him, understanding that he made a terrible decision. I must also compliment Izzy G here as Kelly Ellard. She plays Kelly as a psychopathic, cold and ruthless killer with no remorse or either reflection. And both Chloe Gideroy as Josephine Bell and Ayana Goodfellow as Dusty Pace turn out excellent performances, as does the whole Virk family. In fact, all the cast are absolutely on point here. The story is one that is rather disturbing. It's a truly sad case of youth gone wild. There are so many factors to why this crime happened and how it could have been avoided. Reena herself wasn't always innocent, in fact falsely accusing her father of even molesting her, just so she could fit in with the so-called cool crowd. This is a tale of peer pressure, herd mentality, and even racism. These kids, who many of them were neglected, had turned to alcohol, drugs, been influenced by the counterculture of the time, and were just angry, irrational teens. Now, bullying happens around the world, but unfortunately, egged on by each other, by alcohol and drugs, these teens took it just one step too far. It's a truly tragic tale, and the show really captures this in a poignant way, leaving you with so many questions rather than answers. As I said earlier, the acting performances are fantastic, and the mere fact that the show was actually shot in British Columbia lends itself to the believability of what's been put forth before us. with its excellent, fascinating story based on this horrible, true-life murder, its fantastic insight into teen culture at the time, and even the broader sense of immigrant culture and acceptance within our own communities. Under the Bridge is a striking, harrowing piece of filmmaking that will linger long in the memory. Under the Bridge gets a 9 out of 10.